Well, so let's stick with the earnings in the East African markets. The Stanbic Bank CEO for Kenya and South Sudan, Joshua Ogara, has provided some insights into the lender's 2024 financials. The NSE-listed company announced 13.7 billion shillings in net profit last year. That's roughly 13% growth, driven by lower income. We've got these excerpts from this sit-down interview with Joshua Ogara, courtesy of Mina Shege, a business journalist and communications specialist based in Nairobi. Let's listen.
As you see that, in terms of the continuum of how we see shareholders return, largely it's a fundamental ambition that the board we have over the years.
Yeah.
And when you look at our 60% dividend payout, it's something actually we're building a consistency around that frame.
Yeah.
So remember, post-COVID, we had some kind of resizing around where that number should be.
Yeah.
But generally, we never moved away from setting the benchmark.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if our shareholders, and I must thank their support.
Yeah.
So we're also changing the kind of capital structure on how we look at our balance sheet over year and year.
Yeah.
So we're bringing in more tier 2 capital into our balance sheet structure, which means we are able to be flexible in terms of how back we give our shareholders. But I must say that this was perhaps the most significant increase in our dividend payouts ever in the last 3-4 years.
I saw that. And congratulations for that. The shareholders are happy. You know, one would question this, just as we close on that conversation, the sustainability of that dividend, as you have said, versus balancing your growth and investments. Because it's a balance. You want to retain some capital to continue growing and continue as well doing what you're doing. And I'm saying this because at the back of the fact that this was very significant.
You have to remember who we are as an organization. So I have to remind you and remember our shareholders, we're not just a local institutions. You know, our parent is Africa's largest bank by far, Standard Bank.
Wow.
And we don't have a gap in terms of raising capital for our businesses. So that is not a question that we have.
Yeah.
I mean, our parent has always been very strong over the years, not just in Kenya, but across the continent, to anchor growth, because our ambition is Africa is home and we drive our growth. And therefore, we look at dividends as a different strategy to return to shareholders their investment when we want capital for growth, if we needed to do that today or next week or next year. So I'd like to reemphasize that we are, the journey of a bank we are is because we have a global anchor who is very much convicted about the journey for growing the continent. And as long as you see that, that is where I think gives us the momentum to continue taking new opportunities. And if you look at last year, there are many things the bank was able to do. For instance, we were a great advisor for the sovereign on the big bond raise they did last year. When Kenyans were a bit nervous and saying, what's going to happen? Behind the scenes, you're working very deliberately as a joint lead manager to help to address those kind of gaps. Same as the one which you just launched this year. So just giving you that capability around where we are as an organization.
Excellent.
And I think when I look forward, our dividend conversation will continue. And we've also had a fantastic performance of our share price this year.
Okay, lovely. And I'm glad you mentioned about that particular bond transactions and how you've been supporting on that. Let's get to the challenges. And I wanted to start with your market in South Sudan. We are looking at it. We are seeing a bit of depreciation of their currency, a little bit of some turmoil there. What are you observing? And, you know, you sit at the hub. What's your observations with that market?
One of the things I get very excited about to speak is around a different lens of how you construct countries. So that architecture, you know, Kenya has been an independent country for more than 60 years. And sometimes we make an assumption that countries have the same roadmap on how they come out and build themselves. In South Sudan, post-independence, you know, in 2007, and obviously the elections in 2010, 2011. It's not been a long time. So this is, you're talking about the second decade. So the construction of the massive pillars of growth, largely the economy is dependent on oil exports, 95% of the economy. And then there was a disruption last year because of the challenges we have in Sudan. So that has been a fundamental flaw. So hyperinflationary element has come into the market in South Sudan. But let me say that we navigate complex countries as Stanbic. We've been there for a long time. Actually, Stanbic has been the first anchor bank for the government of South Sudan, even before independence. So, but last year was particularly difficult, if I look at it this way. We are hopeful that now the oil exports are likely to open themselves up this year. We should be able to see, can I say, not resuming to normalcy, but an improved market conditions. So our businesses went down last year more than 60%, largely because of oil exports were not running. And that was a massive issue that we had before. And then when that had happened, economic activity naturally just comes down.
Yeah.
But we are optimistic that, what we see in that market is to diversify the size of the economy.
Okay, lovely. I'll come to the Kenyan market, and I just was looking at the numbers. I love the word that you like using, navigating economic cycles with your people and supporting clients through difficult times. That's the word you used last in our previous time, and I'm curious to know how that has been going, but I want you to center on your NPLs. There's a slight rising of the NPLs, but when I look at your rate, it's still within standard market rate. So I wanted to ask you, how are you managing this credit risk while maintaining profitability?
So let me step back. When I look at the silhouette on how you see enterprise and markets, sometimes the mirage we have as business and clients and also as investors is it remains steady. It's actually not true. There's a lot of mini shocks. If you look at them very closely with the lens, there's always there every singular day. The question is, how do you maneuver your business in that context? It could be an interest rate shock. It could be a pricing issue. It could be a currency challenge. It could be an issue around your global geopolitics. It could be just around your flooding, your elections issues. That's the nature we have. And my view, what I've seen in the last decade, the more we are prepared, the more we are able to take opportunity of that. Stability is not something we see in the last decade. So if I talk about, the non-performing loss ratios, it increased largely because our loan book reduced. And that was because you look at that area, that's the material area we saw. And of the 12% reduction, actually, 8% of that was largely foreign currency resetting of exchange rates. Because remember, 40% of our portfolio is foreign currency. 40%. Actually, in last year, it was more than 45%. So today, it's now come down to, at that time it was 50%. So now we've changed the balance sheet to say now 65% of portfolio is local currency. So that's the biggest change. And number two, you look at the cost of risk. So our NPL ratio around 10% is still quite lower compared to where we see in the market. In fact, I always ask my teams, are we taking enough risk for the portfolio, for the markets where we are? Because look at the cost of risk. Our target is 2%. We're at 1.17, 1.2. So what is happening with these 80 basis points? And that is largely SME businesses we want to be able to deal with, local corporates we want to be able to deal with and support them, and largely the consumer market in Kenya, where we need to be able to deal with as well going forward. So I am happy with that moment. But our long-term ambition is still below single digits for non-performing loan ratio.